The Dallas Homestand Weekend concluded last night, and at least in my opinion, I would have to say it was a great success. Whilst one of the days had a much worse viewing experience than the other, the crowd throughout the event, but especially for the Dallas home games, was brilliant and was fully invested, which added a whole other dimension to those matches. So let's discuss what happened on these 2 days, before seeing how my predictions for the weekend fared. Day 1 was on the whole a very one-sided affair for most of the matches, and it was kicked off by the inconsistent Paris Eternal, taking on the unbeaten this stage, London Spitfire, and ultimately, this series was quickly determined by the ability of both sides on 3-3 goats. Both on the first map and others, Paris were able to find the most success and cause their opponents issues when running triple DPS or bunker comps, which was perhaps best highlighted on Anubis, where they blitzed through the first point and could have taken the second had their execution and follow-up on an EMP barrage been more coordinated. However, as this series went on, it became clear that simply the Eternal could not compete in the 3-3 matchup against London, which has been a problem for a lot of teams this season. The tank line of the Spitfire, in Gesture, Prophet and Fury, all had great series, with Gesture having his way with LH Cloudy in the main tank duel, hitting some huge shatters, as Prophet and Fury made Soon's day a nightmare by constantly pressuring him and eating his grabs in some crucial moments. The first map in Busan and the last in Junkertown saw the team settle into the 3-3 matchup, that for the most part just saw London comfortably dominate. Anubis and King's Row saw a bit of a fight from Paris, but ultimately the Spitfire always felt in control and not really threatened apart from the near snowball on Anubis. They secured the 4-0 win to firmly cement themselves as one of the top teams this stage, as the struggles continued for Paris. The second game of Saturday saw the Hangzhou Spark face the Chengdu Hunters in perhaps the most unpredictable matchup of the day, with both sides having illustrated both positives and negatives in their play so far this stage. Although map 1, again on Busan, gave us a pretty good indication of how the series would pan out, with Chengdu being exposed as they have in recent weeks on the 3-3 matchup, with Ameng being forced onto Rhine, with Hammond struggling to find success. With the Hunters forced into this corner, they were exploited by Rhea and Gushui, who had their way on this map, as the Spark took the early map lead. A similar story continued on to Anubis, with Gushui having some very effective ultimates, with the scraps being picked up by the subbed-in Adora on Genji. The Hunters' attack just felt disjointed, as they were forced into the evidently unfavourable and uncomfortable GOATS contest, and despite only picking up the map at the end, were outdone in the second attacks, as the Spark took a 2-0 lead into the half. Blizzard World after the break appeared to show a rejuvenated Chengdu, with them preferring a return to their DPS comps, and was on the back of Jingbu and Yang Xiaolong on double sniper, as well as McCree, that eventually broke down Hangzhou, as they comfortably reached their needed distance, to take us to an important map 4 on Junkertown. Both sides utilised pirate ship comps to complete the map first time round, but again it was the Spark who was simply the cleaner and better coordinated, giving themselves over 2 minutes of time bank advantage. The Hunters did manage a decent distance before the main man Gushui came in with a clutch pin onto Bastion to end Chengdu's attack. The pressure was mounting and finally Hangzhou managed to break through to win the map and thus this series 3-1 to continue this recent positive trend for the Spark, whilst Chengdu continued in their all over the place manner. The last 2 series of the day saw the 2 Texas teams in action, as first the Houston Outlaws played the Seoul Dynasty, before the LA Valiant faced the hometown Dallas Fuel, and both series were very unbalanced, with one side dominating, although it was only one Texas fanbase, the much larger one, that seemed to enjoy itself. Houston fans were given false hope after their side destroyed Seoul in the triple DPS matchup, so they took the first round of Oasis. But from here on, the Dynasty kicked into gear, mostly controlled the 3-3 matchup, winning the map, with the Outlaws suffering similar issues to Paris. Since their move to this roster, Seoul have been looking great, improving week on week, with the backline rejuvenated, with great performances from Toby and Jaehong again, whilst Marvel and Fit have so far validated their inclusion over Fletter and Fisher, with another methodical and improving display. The team as a whole turned it up a notch over the next 2 maps, and whilst Rialto was closer, they again came out on top to secure the 4-0 victory, and like London, highlight that they are one of the best teams in the league right now, as Houston again in this meta look to be near the bottom of the barrel. Dallas followed in Seoul's footsteps, rewarding the great hometown support, with a 4-0 victory of their own, that ultimately, despite everyone playing an important role, was led by OGE, who decimated Fate in the main tank duel. The best display came on Iconward, where despite losing the first point, they incredibly stopped the payload from moving further than 12 meters. in a round that showed off the peak of this team's coordination and quality at its best, and set back the Valiant, who've been showing signs of improvement over the past few weeks. In contrast to Saturday, Sunday of Dallas' Homestand Weekend brought 4 competitive series that weren't nearly as one-sided as the day before, with the first match between the Hangzhou Spark and Paris Eternal, a great example, setting the precedent for the matches to come. Unlike some of the other matches though, this one was at times very sloppy, but this just added to the entertainment of it all, as the first map Li Jiang saw Rhea and Soon battle head to head on Tracer in a crazy back and forth. Each round was finely balanced, but in the end it was Gushui in the 3-3 matchup against LH Cloudy that made the big impact, giving his side the edge after a big shatter as the Spark went 1-0 up. Even with some goats being played, both sides were happy to opt in to running triple DPS comps, which continued into Anubis, where Soon stole one of the highlights of the day with a crazy flick on Widow at point blank onto Rhea's Tracer after taking out Godspeed's Sombra. With each team completing the map, the triple DPS contest just seemed to fall in Paris' favour, bettering their opponent in their second attack to tie the series at 1-1. Eichenwald best demonstrated the craziness of this series, but also why both sides have been struggling so far this season. Both sides completed the map first time round, and then managed to push the payload to the final section in their second attack. But in both instances, it was because of the defending side's poor coordination and mismanagement of support ultimates that kept the momentum with the attacking side. It was Eternal in the end who just edged it out. The Spark once again utilised their superior 3-3 to end Paris' push on Junkertown in the third section, as Rhea brought out another surprise with a Tor pick on attack, to help push his side through to a map win, level the series and take us to the first Game 5 of the weekend. Here though, ultimately Gushui and Hangzhou's 3-3 was again shown to be more refined as they came up clutch in the crucial teamfights to just take 2 rounds consecutively to win the map and hence the series 3-2, continuing their great run of form whilst delivering a low blow to Paris, who knew that the series was one they could have come out on top in. The match that followed pitted 2 teams trending in opposite directions as the Chengdu Hunters were against the London Spitfire, although this match produced one of the biggest surprises this weekend, and this was largely down to London inexplicably opting into the triple DPS contest with the Hunters, as well as running some Sombra goats a lot of the time. Oasis began in the Spitfire's favour with a dominant first round on Sombra goats, but from here on Chengdu seemed to read their opponents perfectly and took an early map lead, with London struggling to find a response to Yang Xiaolong on Sombra and Jinmu on his signature Farret. The second map, Paris, saw both sides find success on their attacks, both teams completing the map twice, but it was London who found the edge with a double sniper pulled pork comp that was able to carve through the bunkered defences of Chengdu and give them a time bank push that just managed to clutch out and level the series thanks to a perfectly timed gesture Primal Rage. Yet after the break, the Spitfire didn't come back and build on the momentum from the previous map. Instead it was the Hunters who came roaring into the life, with incredibly strong pushes on both Eichenwald and Rialto, with London unable to effectively stop them, before then confusingly getting full held on Eichenwald, trying to run a strange triple DPS comp, whilst their goats and Sombra goats were torn apart by Jinmu's Doomfist on the second section of Rialto. So Hunters came away with a 3-1 victory and kept their playoff hopes alive, whilst halting all of London's momentum, with questions over their decision to not stick to their recent comps and style that have been having so much success so far this stage. Sunday's third series was between the Seoul Dynasty and the LA Valiant, and following their results on Saturday, you would have been forgiven for assuming that this series would be heavily one-sided in Seoul's favour, which appeared to be the case as they blitzed through Busan to take the lead quickly. But after this map, each one that followed was very close, and the ebb and flow of the series swung back and forth. On Hanamura, a space grav-eaten bomb proved crucial in delaying the Dynasty's push, meaning that although both sides completed the map, Seoul had no time remaining. The Valiant capitalised on this to take the map and level the series at the break. Indeed, again both sides managed to complete King's Row, with LA a little faster, and really looking to find their groove for quality performance. But it was this map that became the Marvel show, who utilised the fact that Fate was getting often caught out of position to land multiple multi-man shatters that kept the momentum with Seoul, and extraordinarily allowed them to finish the map a second time round, an amazing feat that the Valiant could not repeat, as they were full held at point A. Junkertown was again close, with the Valiant finishing the map, with the Dynasty coming close in reply, but Kareev came up clutch in the last 2 fights, killing Jehong while he had Trans up, to swing both teamfights in his side's favour, and take us to our second map 5 of the day. It even looked like we might be in for a second consecutive upset, as LA took round 1 on Oasis, but from here Seoul turned it up a notch, with a very impressive performance on the other rounds, to eventually save themselves from the loss, as they won the series 3-2 and held on to their playoff hopes, whilst again showed the Valiant improving, albeit at the expense of yet another Map 5 defeat. Dallas' Homestand Weekend concluded with a Texas derby between the Houston Outlaws and the Dallas Fuel. Moss's game wasn't as close as some of the others yesterday. The crowd more than made up for it, with a huge amount of engagement and great level of energy, which was clearly what the league will want replicated once home games had become common next season. Unfortunately for Houston fans, it was the hometown team that drew first blood on Lijiang, with the difference in the team's 3-3 comps for difference yet again. But in retaliation, Jake brought out his infamous Jake Rat on Anubis, which found so much success, firstly in delaying the Fuel's attack on A, before holding B alongside Lynx's Mei, which subsequently gave them the very achievable objective to attain, which they did to level the match. After halftime, the series became the OG and Muma show, with both main tanks that catalyst their team's success. But on King's Row and then Gibraltar, whether helped by the favourable crowd, or simply having shown a more consistent, reliable 3-3 GOAT, it was Dallas who managed to edge out both maps to secure the 3-1 win and take the Texas Derby over their in-state rivals. Now looking at my predictions, which so far this stage have been going incredibly well, it was yet another good week, as I got 7 out of 8 games correct, with the only incorrect result being Chengdu's upset over London, which I think was mainly down to London's decision to play Chengdu at their own game, rather than just stick to 3-3. This takes my record so far this stage to 48-8, although I'd say that I thought that the games on Saturday would have been a little closer, but then the opposite come Sunday. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching my Dallas Homestand Weekend review, and I hope you enjoyed. I'll be back probably on Wednesday with my Stage 2 Week 4 power rankings, so to ensure you don't miss out, please like and subscribe for this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.